Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It's Wednesday. I hope your week is going well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. It's match day, of course. Arsenal in action a little bit later on at the Emirates in the Carabao Cup. Hopefully, the start of a successful cup campaign for Mikel Arteta's side. They play League One Bolton tonight. I'm going to be heading to the game later on this evening. It's a sellout, which is great to see. Considering all the changes that are probably going to happen, I think, tonight. Great to see the Emirates sold out for this one. Should be a decent atmosphere there a little bit later on. So we're going to spend some time talking about that game in today's show. Of course, we'll look at what Mikel Arteta has been saying ahead of the game. We'll look at some of the sort of team selection decisions facing him, some of the youngsters who could start. We'll talk about Ethan Nwaneri, who we're certainly expecting to start tonight's game, which will be really, really interesting to watch to see how he gets on there. Big moment for him, of course, but could be some other youngsters playing alongside him as well. We can see what some of you guys have been saying ahead of the game and plenty of other things to discuss as well. But before we move on to today's game, I just wanted to spend a little bit of time still going over the fallout from Sunday's game against Manchester City. Now, we don't know yet. It's not been totally confirmed in terms of how long Rodri is going to be out with this knee injury. All the talk is that it is an ACL injury. Don't think, as of this point, it's been absolutely confirmed that season's over for Rodri or anything like that. But obviously, suggestions are that it could be, which is obviously for him, it's just, it's a dreadful shame. You never want to see a player injured, 100%. And I've seen people on social media, Arsenal fans on social media, celebrating the fact that Rodri's injured, which I think is really just, it shouldn't be that. If this happened to an Arsenal player, you'd be devastated. Think about Jurriën Timber when it happened to him at the end of last season, start of last season. It's awful. You shouldn't be celebrating any player getting injured. So it's really bad news for Rodri, and I hope he recovers well and gets back to his best, because in my mind, he should be winning the Ballon d'Or this season. I think he's that good a player. But what I wanted to talk about was some of that. I find it mad, like totally and utterly mad, what I've seen in terms of criticism for Thomas Partey over this incident. I just don't get it. I just do not get it. I saw at Pep's press conference yesterday, he was being pressed on it, saying that, Arsenal were targeting Rodri and maybe this injury was a result of that, which is just complete and utter rubbish. I mean, the first incident, that after 4 seconds when he went down, he just basically steps across Kai Havertz. You can see it. Kai Havertz starts running. Yes, he doesn't move out of the way of Rodri, but Rodri steps across and tries to block him and gets taken out by it and then pretends to be injured from it. And so it's just ridiculous that saying Arsenal targeted him for that point. And the incident which saw him get the injury is absolutely 100% nothing to do with Thomas Partey in terms of blame. He should not get a single bit of blame. And the mere suggestion that he potentially tried to do this on purpose or anything like that is just utterly ridiculous. It's just not true, and people shouldn't be spreading that or saying that. Obviously, it's just a world of social media, and it's impossible to maintain standards and to stop people saying things. But it's just for anyone with a right mind who has actually got their head switched on, you cannot be blaming Thomas Partey for this incident. The corner was coming in, the pair of them were running to the near post, and Partey's job was to track Rodri, which he did. And Rodri's leg just went. His knee buckled underneath him. It was just a freak, horrible accident, which you see time and time again when you get these ACL injuries. The knee just goes. It gets planted. It gets stuck. Something happens, and the momentum that you've got just takes you over, and the ligament goes. It's nothing to do with Thomas Partey. He did nothing wrong. And it's ridiculous. I mean, him and Rodri are good mates. They played together at Atletico Madrid. They're very, very close. They're tight. He would never have wanted anything like that to happen to Rodri. So it just blows my mind sometimes, the stupidity of people on social media. But I've even seen journalists writing things about it, and I don't get it. There's no way you can look at that in the right mind and think that Thomas Partey meant to injure Rodri. It was just a simple coming together from a corner, what you're supposed to do, track your man, don't let him get away from you, and just a really unfortunate thing happened. So I hope Rodri gets better as quickly as possible. I hope his rehab goes well. I hope his recovery goes well, and he gets back playing, because football needs him. He's one of the best players in the world, and you don't want to see the best players in the world injured at the height of their career. But please do not try and blame Thomas Partey for this, because it is just, quite frankly, not true, and you shouldn't be saying it. So there, I've had my say on the Thomas Partey Rodri incident. Okay, quickly on to some more fallout. I thought this was a really good comment from Mikel Arteta yesterday. The whole dark arts thing, you can see it's annoyed him. He said it in his press conference yesterday when he was talking about potential team news and who might not be available for tonight's game. And he said, look, wait and see the lineup and then we'll talk about the dark arts. So you can tell he's getting a little bit bothered. And I'm not surprised because it seems like all of the reaction to what happened on Sunday is to do with Arsenal's dark arts, which is just ridiculous, rather than focus on the amazing things that they did in that game for nearly keeping City out. It's just all about time wasting and feigning injury, which, I mean, the players who went down in the second half, Timber, Calafiori, Martinelli, they all went off. They all limped off. It wasn't like they just got back up and carried on playing. They all went off, and I doubt any of them are going to play tonight. David Raya went down injured. Yes, he was off. He was limping through the mix zone very heavily and is a big doubt for tonight's game. So I'm not surprised Arteta's getting a bit wound up with it. And you see other teams praised for that sort of thing all of the time. And yet Arsenal seem to be getting hammered for it. And it's just been a consistent talking point throughout. So he was asked about it again in the sort of embargoed section of the press conference. So the quotes went live on 10:30. And I thought this is really interesting. You could see he just said, look, no comment. And this was in response to the fact that City players keep bringing up the dark arts and all that about Arsenal and how they played on Sunday. And then he just said, I've been there before. I was there for 4 years. And then when he was asked to, what do you mean by that? He said, look, I have all the information, so I know. Believe me. And he said it with a smile. And, it's not surprising. We know, we're talking about dark arts. This is Pep Guardiola. We're talking about tactical fouling, all that sort of stuff. We've seen it in the documentary. Yes, Arteta was, a central point in that as well on the coaching staff. It's something that City have always adopted to their play. 100%. And suddenly now Arsenal are doing it and City are crying. It just makes me laugh. It really does make me laugh. And I thought it was a really good comment from Arteta. And the look on his face as he said it was very, very telling. And, Pep, to his credit as well, in that press conference when he was asked about Thomas Partey and all of that, he didn't dig out Arsenal for what happened. It just seems to be this big narrative has been made about it. And it just kind of, I think it's very easy to spin your own narrative when it comes to games. And all the fact that all of the Man City players came out after the game and were just talking about this and making such a big thing of it, that has become the story now. Not City's failure to be able to beat 10 men and to struggle to get through 10 men for 53 minutes and then eventually get a goal that just deflects in their path right at the end to salvage themselves a draw against 10 men at home. They've managed to spin the narrative very, very quickly away from that because all they've said, all they've talked about is trying to point to Arsenal and cry about what Arsenal did. And it's worked in a way because that's what people are focusing on now, rather than the fact that Arsenal was so close to deservedly, in my mind, beating Man City with 10 men at the Etihad. But there you go. Anyway, enough about that City game. Let's now turn our attention to tonight, shall we? In the Bolton game in the Carabao Cup, going to be a completely different team, obviously, to the side that we saw play at the Etihad. Going to be some senior players. It's going to have to be because Arsenal are so short on players right now. Some of the senior players are going to absolutely have to play. There will be a sprinkling of youngsters as well. We'll talk about Ethan Nwaneri and Miles Lewis-Skenny in a minute. But Mikel's speaking about the potential lineup and players who could feature tonight, including the likes of Raheem Sterling, Gabriel Jesus, those sort of players. He says it's a great opportunity for any player to show what they are bringing into the games who haven't had the ability yet to play much, to transform what they're doing in training and give us the right reason and to perform on the pitch. We want to win the game. We have to start with the first game. We have to understand what is the best team, the strongest team that we can put out to perform in the way that we need to be better than Bolton and to beat them. So this is what I'm thinking. This is so hard, the predicted level for today, because I'll freely admit I don't know the injury news at the moment in terms of who might be available and who might not be available. But I doubt that any of the players that we saw limp off against Man City are going to play. So this is what I'm going for. I'm going with David Raya in goal, but again, I don't know about the injury yet to David Raya and if this is going to keep him out or not. Obviously, there's no Neto because he's cup tied. So if Raya can't play, then it is going to be a young player, potentially Jack Porter, a 16-year-old playing in goal for Arsenal tonight, which will be just mad. But I've gone with Raya. I think if he's fit, he plays in this game, especially as there's going to be a couple of inexperienced defenders, I think, in front of him in the back four. So obviously Ben White is carrying an injury at the moment. He came on for 45 minutes against City, but he played through the pain with that. So I don't think he'll start today. I don't think Timber will start today because he's played so much football recently. And obviously that took its toll. You saw him cramping up in the game against Man City. Well, we hope it was cramp anyway. So I think he's going to have a rest tonight. So I'm going with Josh Nichols, who we saw play very, very, very well in pre-season. Youngster, obviously, but I'm going with him playing at right back tonight. I'm then going Saliba. I think one of Saliba or Gabriel has to play. And I think just because I'm going a Kivior playing as a left-sided centre-back, rather than having two left-footed players, I'm going to go with Saliba playing alongside Kivior at centre-back. Then I'm going with Miles Lewis-Skelly playing at left-back. Midfield, Jorginho, Nwaneri, and I think Declan Rice. Again, I just don't think Arsenal got many options here because of injuries. I think you've got to rest Thomas Partey in this game. Declan Rice played one less game recently because of that suspension. His engine's fantastic. His physical capabilities are unmatched, basically. And you can't say that when you're talking about Thomas Partey. I think you've got to take a little bit of a break with Thomas Partey. He's played so much football recently. Tonight, he needs a night off, in my mind. So I think he'll go with Jorginho. Nwaneri will obviously play. I'm putting him in that sort of Martin Odegaard role. There's a chance he might play in the front line in the forward three, but I think he'll probably play in that Odegaard role alongside Declan Rice. And then the front three, I'm going with Saka. It could be someone like Cabia, who we've seen on the bench recently. Maybe he'll come in and play him on the right-hand side. I'm thinking Sterling on the left and Gabriel Jesus up front. I'm going with Saka just because he only played 45 minutes against Manchester City at the weekend before coming off. So that's my predicted 11. That's what I think he might do. But it's flip of a coin type stuff for a game like this. You just don't know in terms of it. So that's going to be, I'm sure it'll be hopelessly wrong, but that's a predicted 11 that I have gone for the game. Actually, before we go into your questions, just talking about Nwaneri, I think this is a really big moment for Ethan. Really big moment. I'm really looking forward to him. I spoke about this in yesterday's show, but there's been so much talk about Ethan. We've been waiting to see him play for so long. Everyone wants to see him get his chance. He got that brief cameo against Spurs. I thought he did very well, just as I thought Miles, handled the situation very, very well when he came on Sunday. And I think that both of them are going to start, and it's going to be really exciting. But especially for Ethan, I think this is just such a big moment for him. There's been so much hype about him for so long. So many fans have been calling for him to get an opportunity, to see what he can do. And yes, this may not be a Premier League game, but this is still a big game in front of a sold-out Emirates crowd. There's going to be a lot of expectation. Lots of the fans that could be going there tonight excited about seeing Ethan Nwaneri. Arsenal's social media graphics billing the game that they've put out has got Ethan Nwaneri on it, no other player. So there's lots of hype and focus on him. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he handles that situation and if he can impress, and if he can take it all on his shoulders as a 17. Remember, he's only 17 still. He's just a kid, literally just a kid. And if he can handle that, put it all on his shoulders and perform tonight, then he's going to thrust himself right into the reckoning in terms of Mikel's team selection. So it's a big moment for him. I'm really looking forward to it tonight, to seeing how he can handle the situation. And Lewis Skelly as well. He's maybe got under the radar a little bit because of Ethan, but big night for him as well. And I think the way that both of them handled themselves and adapted themselves in pre-season over on the US tour says a lot about them and their quality and their maturity as well. Mikel's been speaking about the pair of them ahead of this game, saying how well they've handled their recent cameo substitute appearances and how determined they are behind the scenes and how they're constantly going up to him and asking him for advice and pushing to be more involved. That's just kind of characters he wants and the personality he wants from his young players. But ultimately, they now need to be given a chance on the pitch. And I think tonight's a fantastic opportunity for them to be given that chance. All right, questions and comments from you guys now before we wrap this one up for tonight. Mr. Spare at the top there says, I think it makes sense to play Martinelli and rest Saka for Sterling. Martinelli could benefit from getting a goal or an assist, and Bolton might be the perfect opportunity. I think it's a really good point. My only thing is, just because Martinelli went off against City, that I just have a feeling he might be rested for this one and Saka might play because he only played 45 minutes. So that's my thinking behind it. But yes, 100%, we all want Gabriel Martinelli to score a goal. I thought he was very good against City, really good. I thought he was good against Spurs as well, despite some of the criticism he got. But it would definitely be nice to him to score a goal. So, if he does start, if he does play, then absolutely fine. But just for the reasons I've given, I think it might be Saka. Devan says, my 11 against Bolton is Porter or Rojas in goal. So no David Raya for you. Gone White, Saliba, Kivior and MLS. Jorginho, Rice and Nwaneri, Saka, Jesus and Sterling. You say Havertz, Partey and Martinelli need a rest. Saka to be subbed off at 65 minutes. We'll be winning by 2 or 3 against goals then, hopefully. Just not sure about Ben White. He's playing through the pain already. I'd be surprised if he starts this game, but we'll see. Aurora Freak says, I really hope that Arteta will give some minutes to youngsters. I would like to see Porter or Rojas in goal, Nichols, Saliba, Kivior, MLS, Georgie, Rice, Sterling, Nwaneri, Jesus and Cabia up front. I think Cabia's more of a winger. I mean, I don't know too much about him, but I think he's more of a winger than a striker, so I'm not sure he'd be leading the line tonight, but we shall see. I think it'd be much more likely that he'd be on the wing and Jesus as the central striker. But thank you, as always, you guys getting involved. Give me your thoughts ahead of tonight's game. Here's one from XI. Says, hi, Charles. Tomorrow is my first, or tonight now, is my first game attending a night game under the lights at the Emirates. How is the atmosphere? Difference between midweek night games and a weekend ones? Hope to bump into you tomorrow. Well, I'll be in the press box tonight. So if you're sitting anywhere around the press box, then you'll be able to see me very, very easily. How does the atmosphere different? Well, I mean, night games under lights are always different. You always got that just extra little bit of electricity in the air for night games. Obviously, this is a little bit different because you're going to be playing against Bolton, League One team. You're not going to have that rivalry with the fans that maybe, if you're playing one of the big boys from the Premier League, you were going to have. But I always like the atmosphere at League Cup games, because it's a different type of crowd. You get a lot of people there who aren't able to get tickets for league games, but they get themselves tickets for these games. So it's always a bit of a different crowd. There's some excitement in the air. Get more youngsters there as well at times. So it'll be a good atmosphere tonight. I'm sure it will be. It's a sellout, like I said, which is great. So yeah, I'm sure you'll enjoy it, actually. So I hope you have a very good night under the lights at the Emirates later. And Lewis here says, with Timber starting to look like an incredible player, but having signed Calafiori this summer, what do you think it's going to mean for Ben White? It's been one of, if not the best right backs in the Prem for the last 2 seasons, but it feels as if Timber has shown enough to not be dropped. Obviously, competition is always healthy, but do you think White will have to settle for playing less now? Love the content. Keep up the good work. Maybe he'll have to settle for playing less, but it's a good thing, to be honest, because he's been carrying this knee injury all the way through last season, and we couldn't rest him because there was no one else really to play. He's got this knee injury troubling him at the start of this season. What you want to be able to do, and why Arsenal are signing these players, especially in defence like that, is you can rotate the fullbacks, and you're just not going to have a drop in quality. So yes, he might not play as many minutes, but to be honest, I think that's a good thing. It's good for him. It's good for his longevity. It's good for his fitness. And it's great for Arsenal because you've got this really strong squad, which you can chop and change between. And that's before you even factor in Tomiyasu coming back as well, and Zinchenko coming back on the left-hand side. So yeah, I get what you're saying, 100%. And I think he probably will have to settle for a little bit less playing time, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And I'm not sure deep down Ben White will think that's necessarily a bad thing, because he'll still play a lot of games, a lot of minutes in all the big competitions, but he just might have to share them a little bit more now, which is something he's not really had the opportunity to do recently because Tomiyasu's been injured so long, and Timber obviously missed the whole of last season. So thank you very much for your question there, Lewis. And that's it for me today. Thank you very much for watching and for listening. As always, I'll be heading to the Emirates a little bit later on today. I'll try and do, I think, a video after the game from the press box in terms of match reaction and player ratings. But I'll definitely be doing one tomorrow morning as well, the more in-depth reaction show. So you want to get involved in that, you know what to do. Just get down and reply to this one or reply to the ratings video afterwards. I'll pull it all together and get some of them included in tomorrow's show. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a fantastic day. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.